Good evening, everybody. And tonight is a very, very exciting night. As tonight, we will be talking about the MLB offseason. As everybody in the baseball fan base should know, the MLB season has concluded as the Texas Rangers, who have just won the first MLB championship as they defeated the Arizona Diamondbacks in 5 games. So, as I'll just get right into it, I'm your host, Colin Buchanan, here with my great friend, Ted.
How's it going?
So, tonight we are going to get into as far as predictions for where these players might be going in this upcoming offseason. This is probably one of the most highly anticipated MLB offseasons we've ever had in MLB history. Well, from my perspective, because one of the biggest stars in MLB history is going to be a free agent this coming season by the name of Shohei Ohtani. And I'll actually just get right into it. Ted, where do you think he will be going this offseason?
I mean, I feel like everybody's always been talking about the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's going to go there. The Dodgers cleared off a lot of payroll in the last season, shed a ton. Makes a ton of sense for him to go there, but I just have this weird gut feeling that there's one team in specific who has a fan base who's very angry at the organization for trading away one of the biggest stars in the game, and I think the front office is going to do something about it. I think the Boston Red Sox are going to end up with Shohei Ohtani this offseason.
You know what? When you first told me that, I was like, why would he want to go there? But to go off on what you said, I'm actually going to, my go-to team is actually the LA Dodgers. But one sneaky team that I think he'd be perfect for, when you really think about it. Now, listen, he's not going to pitch this year. As we all know, he's going to be getting Tommy John surgery or somewhat of Tommy John surgery. So he's not pitching at all this year.
I believe the surgery is already done.
Yeah, but if you are going to get if you're going to get a player like him with his hitting capability, why not the team that surprised everybody this year with the best record in baseball, the Baltimore Orioles? I said this at the trade deadline. I said if there was a team that had the perfect pieces to get him, it was going to be the Baltimore Orioles. And I am such a huge fan of the way that they have become and risen and everything. It's just been unbelievable. And if you put him in that rotation, he would literally be just a star of that rotation. Plus, you will have players such as Gunnar Henderson, Cedric Mullins, you'll have Jackson Holliday, you'll have Santander, Ryan Madcastle, like all these guys, and then you'll have him in that lineup. Oh my, who's going to stop that lineup? Like, it's crazy.
I think that take is so interesting because it actually makes sense for one reason. The fact that Shohei Ohtani knows he's not going to be pitching next year, which takes away a lot of the value. The reason why we've heard rumors of him getting $500+ million was because of how ridiculous it is that he could hit 40 home runs and be your ace. However, he knows he's not going to pitch next year. So that opens up a chance for him to say, hey, maybe I want a 1-year deal. Maybe I want a 3-year deal with opt-outs after every single year. That opens him up to an entire new market of teams, such as the Baltimore Orioles, Arizona Diamondbacks, teams like that. However, you can't count out teams like the Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, and the Mets. But I'm going to stick with my prediction for the Red Sox.
It really comes down to, like I said, throughout the entire season, I said if the Mets were going to be in the conversation for him, there were only going to be 4 players. There were only going to be 4 people. Steve Cohen, Pete Alonso, the manager for the Mets, and Kodai Senga. And then on the other side, it was going to be Ohtani and his agent, and literally they're just going to do this. There's your paycheck. I'll give you whatever you want. But because of what happened this past season, I think Ohtani is off the books for the Mets.
I think so, too. I mean, at first, they were my favorite. All season long, when the conversation had just begun at the beginning of the regular season, where do you think Ohtani's going to end up? I would be the first person to tell you that he was going to be a Met. However, the twists and turns that the New York Mets had this year, and completely as an organization, the changes that they've made, they traded away Max Scherzer, they traded away Justin Verlander. After giving them $40+ million a year, they traded him right away at the same time. It changes the direction of the franchise. So I feel like, yes, Steve Cohen, who's trying to, A, please the fans, B, he's just a Mets fan with a ton of money. I mean, of course he wants Shohei Ohtani, but he also has to keep in mind what is the trajectory that I want to send this organization in? He acquired how many top 100 prospects at the trade deadline? 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So I
Including
think
Ronald Acuña's brother.
their plan of trying to compete by 2025, 2026, it makes sense. And if they can add a couple pieces here and there for now to try and make a push for like a wild card spot, it makes sense. They don't really have a bad team. They just have a lot of holes right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like missing Edwin Diaz was huge for the bullpen. Starting rotation, I don't really think they need an ace. I think they need 1 or 2 guys. And there's holes in left field. There's holes at both corner outfield spots. There's a hole in the infield. They could all be filled in-house or just by short-term deals.
Well,
however, I feel like Shohei Ohtani is pretty much off the books.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather have – I'll give you a great example. Remember in 2021 when Acuña went down with the injury for the Braves? And remember the pieces that they got in return? Like, they weren't star players. They were just they were contributors. Like Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, Jorge Soler. All 3 of those guys, they all contributed to get them to the World Series and everything. What I'm asking is would you rather just spend all your money on just 1 star, or would you rather just have players that can contribute and then get you to a 90-win season?
Well, I think front offices are at a bit of a crossroads right now because in the last 2 postseasons, we've seen pretty much all the lower-level seeded teams make it a lot further. As we saw, the 4 best teams in baseball, the Braves, the Orioles, the Dodgers, and the Rays. They went 1-8 this postseason, 1-9.
I'll just say this right off the bat.
However, the Texas Rangers built their team on spending a lot of money in free agency, and they were the ones who ended up winning the World Series this year. So I feel like as a front office, you're kind of at a crossroads to which way are you trying to build? Are you going to try and build your team on a cheap budget based off analytics, or are you going to try and build your team off of, all right, we're gonna spend a ton of money, we're 100% invested, and we're going to make any changes necessary?
And let me just say one thing right in front of the camera. The LA Dodgers are only an MLB regular season team. They are not a playoff team. I don't care if they get the top 10 guys in the league and they win 118 games, they will still lose in the divisional round. That has come to my senses. Okay? They have not legitimately made it back to the World Series with a great team since 2018. That's all I have to say.
I feel like that issue is they need to get rid of Dave Roberts, and they need to hire a manager who is actually going to have his own plan in place. I feel like a lot of Dodger fans believe that Dave Roberts is almost essentially like a puppet. He's kind of there
just to be there.
Enforcing what the front office wants him to do. It's not working. Clearly, it's not working.
I agree.
They won 111 games last year. They won 106 in 2021. They won 100 games this year. They have been bounced in the division round this year,
But what's crazy
division round
was
last
that-
year, and the Braves pretty much dominated them in 2021.
But what was crazy was that they were like up and down until like July, and then somehow they went on like two 20-game win streaks. But listen, I'm getting off topic. So you have Ohtani going to the Red Sox. I have him mainly going to Baltimore. But obviously the obvious choice would be the Dodgers. So another big story going into this offseason is the Japanese sensation. How do you say his first name again?
Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
So I know Yamamoto. Oh God. Yamamoto. He is a stellar pitcher, and I just found out that he actually just won his 3rd Triple Crown as a pitcher. That is like sensationally impressive. He's only 26, and he is only a pitcher. He's not a hitter, from what I've seen. But he's just as good as Ohtani, as what I've heard from people. They said that he's probably going to get in the range of if he got a deal, it'd be 6 years, 120 or 150, something like that. So if a team were to give that type of an offer, what team would it be, Ted?
I feel like he's going to go to New York. I feel like there's
Either one?
Either one. I feel like it's going to be a battle between those two. I feel like the Yankees, although going into this season they thought they had one of the best rotations. They did. On paper, going into this season, they had
injuries.
They had one of the best rotations in baseball. However, Carlos Rodon missed half the season, and he came back.
He was not ready to pitch this year at all.
He was not.
He was not.
He was not ready to pitch.
Well, he did have a forearm injury.
Luis Severino had a catastrophe of a final year with the Yankees. He's going to be a free agent. Domingo Germán elected free agency. They now have holes in that rotation to be filled. Okay, so now you have Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, and Nestor Cortez.
But let me ask you a question. Do you think he'll get as much money as they gave Tanaka in 2014?
100%.
So it was like a 7-year, like
7 years, $140 million.
Yeah. So like.
So I feel like he could definitely clear that.
So what would the 8-year 180? Like I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees gave something like that. I mean, Cashman would be willing to give that money.
175 would make a lot of sense for me because think about it like this. He's only 26 years old. That's for a Japanese player. Most Japanese guys don't really head over until the end of their 20s, 28, 29.
Yeah, Sango.
He's 26 years old. So giving him more years, that's not going to harm your chances of getting him. In fact, last year we saw the trend of players actually taking more years over AAV. That it flipped. The players would rather more years on a deal for financial security rather than higher AAV. So a player like Yamamoto, who's 26, he has Japanese counterparts who he's compared to. All of them got on large deals. Yu Darvish signed a huge deal with the Rangers back in 2011, 2012. Tanaka signed a huge deal with the Yankees in 2014, I believe. It's a ball that keeps rolling, plus inflation. 2014 money is so much different. It's 10 years past.
Yeah.
You have to think that he's going to get a little bit more money than Tanaka got on an AAV basis, but I also believe that he's going to get more years due to his age. So I feel like he probably ends up in New York. My choice, honestly, the Yankees make more sense.
So I actually have him either going to the Mets or Baltimore, but I have a very good sneaky team. 2 of them, actually. Your Cubs, in my opinion. I think if they bring back Stroman and then he becomes an ace-type guy, I think he can do that. Plus the influence of Sene Suzuki, if they bring him in for the meeting and everything. And how about the Cincinnati Reds? If they bring him and you got that starting rotation, I think is going to be outstanding. He would be at the top. Hunter Green, Nicoletto, who's coming back because Andrew Abbott, and James Amcraft, who actually finished the season like very strong, and then you get a guy in the end of the bullpen, and then you have Alexis Diaz closing the games. Dude, I feel
like that move would definitely put him over the top. I feel like this year they were a little bit young, a little bit immature, but I feel like one more arm like that. That division.
They can easily win the division.
The division is completely up for grabs. As we saw, the Brewers, they had a great manager who is no longer their manager as of today.
You want to get into that real quick, actually?
We could, but let me finish my point. I feel like that division's wide open. Why? The St. Louis Cardinals, who won the division in 22, came into the season favorites to win that division. They completely blew up. Fell apart. The Cubs won 83 games. The Brewers, who on paper, in my opinion, were the worst team in the entire postseason, including the Marlins. They were worse than them on paper.
It hates me for you to say that.
But that division is so wide open. I feel like a young Reds team like that, one move, I feel like the division is theirs.
So just to get a little bit off topic, big news happening into the baseball world from the managerial standpoint, as Milwaukee Brewers former manager Craig Counsell has signed with Ted's favorite team in the Chicago Cubs. I want to get your take on this real quick. When I found out that he was going to go to the Cubs, and when I texted you, you were like, whoa, what? Like, I was honestly surprised, and it's especially for the fact that he's going to be managing in an interdivisional team. This tells me 2 things. One, that the Cubs are going to either do a big splash in the offseason, or 2, that Craig Counsell is only going to go to a team in which he wants to compete, in which he said he did.
First reaction I had, wow, because Craig Counsell, his contract was not over with the Brewers going into this offseason. Actually, the Mets granted permission from the Brewers to interview him, and the Mets actually hired a manager, Mendoza. They hired him about 20 minutes earlier, and when that happened, I didn't really connect the dots. I just figured, I guess Counsell's gonna just manage the Brewers again. Craig Counsell being the manager of the Cubs, that absolutely blew my mind because I thought, from what I really took in from what Jed Hoyer was saying at the end of the season, I think they wanted to, the original plan was to build with David Ross. David Ross has been with the team since 2020. You know, the whole core of guys that we're building around, he's been there since most of them have been called up. Obviously, a few of them, like Ian Happ, he's been there since 2017. Dansby Swanson and Cody Bellinger, they joined the team last year. But the core group of young guys that we're building around, he was there when they all came up. I felt like they were going to at least give him one more year to try and actually make a playoff push because, again, the collapse in September that happened this year, it happens, whatever. Give him one more chance because I believe that this team was young. This was the first real chance they had to kind of compete was this year. So I was honestly really surprised by it. However, though, as a Cubs fan, Cubs and Brewers rivalry has severely intensified since about 2015 when he became the manager. He has the most wins as a manager in Brewers history. In fact, what makes it a little bit more odd, he has a losing record against the Cubs. He is 77-80 versus the Cubs since he's become the manager in 2015 of the Brewers.
Okay.
38-42, another losing record at Wrigley Field.
So
Isn't that
you
interesting?
think that he's just going to do worse when he's
I
managing
don't.
at
I
Philly,
just
in
think it's kind
Chicago?
of odd. I just think it's kind of odd. I don't understand why interdivision rivalry. I didn't even hear that he was going to be interviewed by the Cubs. Nobody knew it. That was a complete shock.
I didn't even know that Bob Melvin too. Same thing.
I mean, we did hear rumors about him getting,
I
permission
know
to
that
be
he was
interviewed by
going to
the
get
Giants.
let go possibly because AJ Preller and him weren't on the same page.
Okay.
But yeah, no. So
I feel like this was more of a surprise because we did know that when he was granted permission to be interviewed by the Giants and he got hired by the Giants for $4 million per year, which was that the highest AAV for a manager in baseball. Then the Cubs quite literally snagged Craig Counsell. Again, they
gave him a bigger deal.
They granted permission from the Brewers, interdivision rival, and doubled Bob Melvin's deal. That he is getting paid $8 million a year to be the Cubs manager.
it's crazy.
That can only tell me one thing: the Cubs are in business. They're very serious. They're going to make a big move this offseason. They want to win another World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as a fan, that makes me really happy.
So going off on the Cubs, you're a former player who had a very good comeback season, former MVP, Mr. Cody Bellinger. I'm gonna go first as far as where I think he'll go. I think he'll go back to the Cubs. I think he had a great comeback year. He really, this was a prove itself year, and by proving yourself that you can be just as good as what you were during your rookie year and the year you won your MVP, it just shows that you can contribute.
Right.
I know that he struggled in his final season with the Dodgers and everything, but now that he reestablished himself, I could really see him getting up worth. Like if I'm a team like the Cubs, and I want to do like a big value but small money, I'd do like a 5-year $95 million, 105. But another team in my mind that could use a really good bat as maybe like an outfielder contributor or even a DH. How about Baltimore and New York? The Yankees. If he goes to Baltimore, he'll hit a lot of home runs there. I mean, he's a lefty. I mean that left field is like maybe like I think it's like 330 something or something like that. Plus, if one of those guys get injured, he'll just play right in that outfield. So, like for example, like Cedric Mullins, like he was hurt for like 2 months. He would have been perfect for that type of situation. As far as the Yankees, if the Yankees can get Bellinger, I'd probably do like a 2-year $30 million and then like do like a player option for the next, but then you would have Judge and then Bellinger in that outfield, and that'd be pretty awesome.
I feel like with Bellinger, it's almost like a double-edged sword when you're thinking about him because there is so much upside to getting a player like Cody Bellinger. You're getting a player he's been to 3 World Series. He has won an MVP. He's won a Rookie of the Year. He's been there, done that with the playoffs. However, the volatility of him, you never know what you're going to get. Like I said, 2020 was, after winning MVP in 2019 and 2020, his OPS dipped from 1047 into the lower 700s, sub 750, followed by 2 years where he struggled to hit 200. Then change scenery to the Cubs. Gets hurt in April, May. He was hitting around 260. Comes right back. The month of July changed the entire trajectory of the season. He hit 400 from July 1st to the end of July.
He was hitting better than Luis Ariz.
He was hitting 400. He hit 400 in the month of July.
I remember
So, again, now my prediction, I think he is going to go back to the Cubs. Why do I think that? I feel like the one thing
But what money would you give him?
I'll get to that. I feel like he's going to go back to the Cubs because as a Cubs fan and hearing what the players have to say, the one thing that the Cubs really have over any other team really is the connection with the fans. Cody Bellinger, he loves Wrigley Field. He loves the fans. He was a fan favorite. He was the face of the team. Even though Dansby Swanson was supposed to be the face of the team, he really took it over. He was the team MVP for sure.
I agree.
Also, you got to think about it like this. The Cubs, their top prospect, Pete Armstrong, he's a center fielder. He's going to be one of the best defensive players in baseball. 5 years. In 5 years, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Cody Bellinger is a center fielder. He's played right field. He's played first base. Cubs have a hole at first base. Cubs have 4 or 5 interchangeable outfielders where they could put him at DH. They could put him in left. They could put him in right. They could put him in center. There are so many options for Bellinger. He fits in so perfectly with that team. I think he really likes the city. I think he loves the fan base. And I think he loves hitting at Wrigley Field. I really do.
If he doesn't go back to the Cubs, where could you possibly see him go?
I did have the Yankees down. It made a ton of sense. I feel like if Juan Soto is not going to be on the trade market, they're pretty much going to go all in. The Yankees have been desperate for a left-handed outfield bat for the last 4 years. I think the Yankees would be the only team that are completely going to overpay. The Yankees would be the one team that where if they were all out of options, if everybody was offering, let's say like where you said 5 years, 95, the Yankees would be the team to say, all right, seven for 140, which would be $20 million a year, more than 5 over 95, 2 more years of protection. The Yankees would be the team to overpay. However, I think the Giants would also be another team. They missed out on Judge last offseason. They missed out on Correa. They're looking for a big signing. They haven't had one in a very long time. They missed out on plenty of key free agents, Bryce Harper and Aaron Judge, like I just said. So it would make a lot of sense for him to be a Giant as well.
So, we're actually going to be, we only have about 10 minutes left or so. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do just 3 players. You're going to tell me the teams, and then we'll explain each. So Blake Snell, Aaron Nola, and Blake Snell, Mark Stroman, and Josh Hader. So those 3 players. So in my opinion, I think Blake Snell. Like I said, I think it was a terrible idea for them to get rid of him in Tampa. I have him actually going back to Tampa. And then as far as for Stroman, I don't think he goes back to the Cubs, in my opinion. Although I could see him possibly. But the 2 teams, in my opinion, I could see him go to is Miami and Seattle. And then as far as Josh Hader, who is probably behind Ohtani and Yamamoto as one of the biggest free agents, is Josh Hader. I could probably see him going back to the Padres or going to the Phillies.
Okay. So bouncing off the Hader idea, right? Mm-hmm. I have him going to the Rangers. Sounds weird.
Oh,
the Rangers just won the World Series. However,
would be so lethal.
The Rangers had a 4.717 bullpen ERA. That was the 7th worst in baseball. They had 33 blown saves, 2nd most in baseball. Mm-hmm. So they did win the World Series, but they still have a glaring weakness. And a lot of people are speculating that they want in on Ohtani, they want in on other players. However, their payroll is very high right now. I feel like if they're going to go after a high value free agent, one that they could afford, this makes a ton of sense. It fits what they need, and they can definitely afford it.
You know what I just realized? The team I'm actually looking at right now, why not he go to Baltimore? Sign him to a 2-year with a player option. Imagine that 7, 8, and 9 when Batista comes back.
I think he's out for the remainder of the
season. He's out for this season. Have him play for the season, and if he opts into to 2025, your 7, 8, and 9 is gonna be Cano, Hader, and Batista. Oh my God, that would probably be so lethal.
However, I feel like Josh Hader sees the value that Edwin Diaz got last offseason. He's getting paid $20 million a year. He's probably going to want something very similar to that. So I feel like a short-term deal is pretty much off for him. I think he's going to be saying to front offices, hey, this is what Edwin Diaz got last offseason. He didn't pitch all year. I've been one of the best relievers in all of baseball since the day I showed up in the major leagues.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now we're gonna get into Marcus Stroman. He did very good this past season for you guys, but I think his time in Chicago is done. I think he needs to be back to what he was like in Toronto, a type of guy that is that's just gonna pitch, and I think that is just gonna lead his team.
I agree with you.
One team that I actually did leave off, if they don't get Sonny Gray back, Minnesota.
I had him going back to Toronto. It makes a lot of sense. Alek Manoah is pretty much a lost cause. It would probably take a miracle for him to be an impact starter again. If anything, he's not going to get his chance right away.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Marcus Stroman makes too much sense for them. They need another impact starter, a guy who's going to come out every single fifth day, and he's just going to give him a quality start. I think it makes too much sense.
Why not? Also, when you think about it too, Marlins just lost Sandy Alcantara. And
I mean, they have an influx of young pitching. They have about 8 young
but
and they're all right-handed.
But here's the problem, though. Actually, no. Trevor Rogers is a lefty,
and Braxton Garrett, but they have tons of right-handed
but here's the
pitching.
problem: you don't know when the heck Cisco is going to come back. Edward Cabrera did okay, and then you don't know where you're going to get your production. Oh wait, no, Jesus Luzardo is a lefty.
I just feel like there's too much of an influx of starting for him to go to
that's
Miami.
true. So the final player we're going to get into is Blake Snell.
So I have a really interesting prediction for that. There's one team. Blake Snell is a Washington kid. The Seattle Mariners have an influx of young right-handed starting pitching, and they need an impact bat. Offense has been the problem for the last 2 years. So what I see is one of Bryce Miller or Logan Gilbert. One of them gets traded in a deal, 1 for 1, 2 for 1, 2 for 2, whatever, for a young bat. That opens up a spot in the rotation. Now, acquiring Blake Snell for the Mariners, that adds a lefty into the rotation. He's probably going to win. You add 2 Cy Youngs now into your rotation. You now have more. You have another lefty, so there's more, back and forth. You're not just facing righty 3 days in a row.
You got to realize something, too, that they also, who's coming back too? Robbie Ray.
Yeah, him and Robbie Ray as the 2 left-handers, and then you either have one of either Bryce Miller or Logan Gilbert, whichever one stays.
Yeah,
that's it.
So,
that is unbeatable.
So you would rather have George Kirby over Logan Gilbert?
100%.
I would rather have Logan Gilbert, but
I think it's a good argument. I don't know. I just have a preference toward George.
So,
Kirby.
In my opinion, I think he might go back to Tampa. But if there's actually a team that, there's actually 2 teams in my opinion, I think he could really go to. If there's one team that desperately needs pitching, it's the Dodgers. If you fail on getting Ohtani, get a very quality good starter. That would be in Blake Snell. Sign him to a 4-year, like $90 million or something like that. Because Kershaw is going to be retiring soon, and then you don't know what you're going to get out of Walker Buehler, and then you don't know what else you're going to be getting.
But these young guys, Pepio, Miller, you never know what you're going to get. So, I mean, it makes sense. I had Aaron Nola going to the Dodgers if he wasn't going to return to Philly. I had him going to the Dodgers. I feel like another right-handed arm would be huge for them. If they're going to sign Kershaw back, I feel like just another right-handed starter, a guy who's been postseason tested, like Nola, the past 2 postseasons. He's made deep runs, and he's been great both times. I feel like it makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers.
Well, let's just hope to see what happens, my friend. As that is going to do it here for the CB Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Colin Buchanan, and that is my good friend Ted. Have a good night, everyone.